Hey everybody, thanks for joining me for my take on Pandemic Legacy Season 0. Now I am going to be talking about all three of the Legacy games, Season 1, 2, and 0. I think it's easier to compare and contrast them by talking about what the new Legacy games offer, but how it really holds on to the core of Pandemic, which I find wholly engaging, fun, exciting, and obviously, I've played all three Legacy games, so replayable or endlessly playable in this Legacy fashion. The basic game of Pandemic is so clean and simple and well balanced that it makes it possible for there to be these Legacy versions where they add variants and adjustments that give players a new taste but still keeps that same core mechanic. Player has 4 actions on their turn. After that, they draw 2 player cards, one of which might trip off an epidemic. Then they draw anywhere from 2, 3, or 4 cards to infect cities, and it's the next player's turn. Clockwise, we know we can plan out turns. Everyone's talking on everyone's turn. It's just a wonderful cooperative game that, again, works so well with these Legacy versions. Fortunately, built into all of the Pandemic Legacy games is this game calendar, and it not only notes your successes and your failures, it notes when you played, if you take good notes, which we do take good notes in my group, and I can just look back at this artifact. I open up the box, and I just see half stickered stickers and torn cards and opened up boxes and just things everywhere, and it's so fun. Now, it's really hard for me to believe that Season 1 came out in 2015, but that's what our notes say. I mean, 6 years ago, nearly. We did go into 2021 this year with our third game when it did come out in 2020. Our group, however, was still playing The King's Dilemma, which is another Legacy game. And so we had to finish that one before we started Pandemic Legacy Season 0. But it is just so cool to go back and look at our games. We have played all 3 Pandemic Legacies with the same 4 members, and every single game we played, all of us were present. I think that offers just a wonderful experience. Now, you don't have to have the same players from game to game, and one person might miss a gaming session, but let me tell you, it's just a wonderful experience to share with the same group over nearly 6 years now, which is kind of awesome. And each one of the seasons has offered a new element or elements that have captured our attention, and I want to share those with you now. I will rank my preference of these games, but before I do that, I just want to offer you some suggestions for playing Pandemic Legacy. And again, take this with a grain of salt, but I really do feel like this is the way to play Pandemic Legacy. So my first suggestion is, as best you can, find that gaming group and play with them, and play every game you can with the same group of people. That creates the experience that I find meaningful with Pandemic Legacy. It's devastating when a player has an experience in a game with their character that everyone can remember. For example, one player in my group had a character who died, and it was just earth-shattering. It was devastating, and we all kind of mourned that loss and that character and what that character could do and help that person move on. Now, that was in Season 1, which kind of added to the excitement and the craziness that the very first season offered. So for us to experience that in the first Legacy was shocking and crazy, and it was also the same game where we tore cards in little pieces, and oh boy, that was hard. We forced each other to tear a card for the first time and had to sit and like encourage each other. Okay, you got this. You can tear that card. You can do it. And I remember the first time we wrote on the board and we created our disease names. And at the end, we were so excited. Our game was just, we had stuff everywhere. It was just so fun. We signed it. I mean, we signed our board And I'm like, oh, maybe we can put this in a shadow box and we can kind of display our game of Pandemic Legacy. It was that monumental for us. So I really encourage you to play with the same players and really go through those experiences with each other, because these characters that you play are close, right? They're like an extension of ourselves. So take advantage of finding a group that's your core group and play that game with them. My second piece of advice is to play the games in the order in which they were released in real time. So if you have not played any of the Pandemic Legacies, you should. You should play these, all of them. I do have different feelings and reactions and experiences to all three of them that vary, but they are all worth your time. So you should play Season 1, Season 2, and ending with Season 0. That's how you should play Pandemic Legacy. And the reason why you should play it that way is because the games develop in a real-time sense. So Pandemic Legacy was the first Legacy game. And Pandemic, as a core game, is so smart and tight and strategic, and it really emphasizes cooperative play, that to make it into a Legacy game was kind of ingenious. It was brilliant. But if you compare it to all of the more recent Legacy versions and games, it seems really simplistic and basic and maybe not as life-altering as it did when we played it in 2015. That's part of my experience with Season 1, is it was just mind-blowing. So first experiences all around with the Pandemic Legacy Season 1. So the other reason why you should play them in order is because the games unfold thematically in such a rich way that starting in the beginning is probably the best place to start, because it's simply the basic Pandemic game. There are epidemics sweeping the country, the nation, the world, and you have to go out there and cure these diseases in a very straight, streamlined fashion, just like the core game, but over time you will start to see the effects of what you choose to do in each game. So it doesn't necessarily have a theme as much as it's just Pandemic, and you get to play it more and more and more and alter a board and play stickers and develop character abilities and traits, and you get to see this world react to the choices you make as a crew going out trying to save the world and trying to save humanity. So that's the base game, that's Season 1. And in Season 2, you are in this post-apocalyptic, futuristic world where they take you, here's what happened after Season 1 happened. So that's why you should play Season 2 after Season 1, because you are furthering this idea that this is all one world and you are taking a look at decades later. I mean, this is post-apocalyptic. You've got these characters, which is one thing that Season 2 does, is it develops everyone's kind of identity, and it gives you a chance to place like little stickers, and you get to pick people. And they're wearing scarves and goggles and hats and all sorts of stuff because it's like super dusty, and there are like places that you can't even go because of radiation, and just crazy stuff happening in Season 2, and you can't even get to major parts of the world. So with that, you're starting Pandemic. If you play Season 2 and never having played any Pandemic, you will look at this and go, wait a minute, where's like the whole map? But the game is creating the map. You start in one small place and you add giant stickers to the board that add other cities and locations and connections and all these different, you're trying to find people out there. You're radioing out and you're trying to connect with all the other survivors in this wasteland of the world. And that's so exciting and fun and new and unique to like not have access to the whole world in the very beginning of Season 2 and then slowly start to find these places. Crazy cool, crazy good. And then in Season 0, we're going back in time, right? We're going back to Cold War time, and this is this strange prequel that works because we've had the game and the sequel, and now we get the prequel. I mean, it's kind of like a movie trilogy. So cool. I think the designers spent the time they needed in between each of the games to develop a wholly unique experience. And in Season 0, players get to create their characters even more in a really cool trifecta fashion. There are passports that players get to play, and they have a character who has all these different aliases, and you get to do some fun things with those characters. It still has pandemic at its heart, but it's changed disease and the pandemic to these this Soviet kind of like push, and you're driving vans around to kind of mop up these Soviet spies, and it's so, again, thematic, but it's the same system. You're just not fighting disease cubes, you're fighting little red figures. And so it works. Well, I can't give you too many, so I don't want to spoil any of this for you. I'm kind of walking around a lot of the elements in these games, and I'm not showing you visuals because I don't want to show you what my game did, and I definitely don't want to spoil it for you because these games are a great experience. So that's why you're not getting a lot of visuals or many visuals of the games themselves. I will share our statistics of the games as I move into my ranking of Season 1, 2, and 0. So in Season 1, we won 10 times and we lost 8 times, which means that we played the game 18 times. I thought that was a great number. We won more than we lost, and it was a really tough start in the beginning. We had a couple losses in a row, but then we really pulled ourselves together and we just dug down, and it was really good. So I think overall Season 1 I had a very strong positive experience with the game itself, in addition to all the cool new innovative things that the Legacy version offers the base Pandemic game. Season 2, we won 10 times and we lost 10 times. So we played 20 games. And I think compared to our 18 before, we were a little bit more efficient and we definitely won more. Our win ratio was higher. And so with Season 2, we kind of felt a little beat down, but a very wholly unique experience.
Hey, psst, kid, is this a safe house? All right, I'm gonna lay low for a bit. You keep an eye out for me, all right?
Now, Season 0 is very different. We played much fewer games of this, and we essentially passed through the first 8 months without failing because we were either adequate or succeeding. Now in Season 0, they rank you in 3 different steps. Succeeding, which is getting all of the objectives. Adequate, which means that you got all but one of the objectives. And failing means that you got none or all but 2 of them if you had 3. If you still got 1, you failed. So it was kind of tough, it was steep, and we played 14 games instead of our normal 18 or 20, and we succeeded in 6 games, we adequately passed in 5, and we failed completely in 3 games. So again, that adds up to 14. I feel like we didn't necessarily get to play as much of the game as I thought we were going to, but we did play through it, finished. Again, it's just so fulfilling and exciting to play a game all the way through, particularly a Legacy game, and again, in the Pandemic universe.
Hey, kid, you think anybody knows it's me? It's me from earlier, remember?
So as the designers say, they are most likely done with the Pandemic Legacy games. They have exhausted everything that they think is worthwhile in the Pandemic Legacy world, and they want to create a good game and they want to create a wonderful experience, and right now their 3 ideas are done. And it took them the longest to design the last game, and so I think they're wanting to take a break. So while there's a break in Pandemic Legacy releases, take some time, find your group, and play through, in this order, Season 1, Season 2, and then Season 0. And just have a good time. These are games to be enjoyed, these are games to be eaten up, and if you play a game 14, 18, or 20 times, I think you've definitely gotten your money's worth, and they are memories that you will take with you forever. As I've mentioned with my group, it's a meaningful experience, and I love them to death, and I love that we've played every single Pandemic Legacy with them.
Hey, kid. Hey, yeah, psst. Remember me? Yeah, it's me again. They haven't burned me, but I got some sweet tats. Okay, you never saw me, you don't know me, you definitely don't know my name.
So, time for my where do my Pandemic Legacies fall? This is my ranking of all 3 seasons. I would rank in 3rd place Season 2. Now, Season 2 was really great, but like I said, we had a little bit of a rocky time with it, personal experience. And I think they were trying something so new with not giving you the map and asking you to essentially find all of these locations. And I think our group found that just a little bit frustrating and maybe just a little bit too new. So new ideas can be really cool, they can be super innovative, and some people might thoroughly enjoy them. For me, not necessarily the most enjoyable of the 3 legacies. And coming in second, I would rank Pandemic Legacy Season 0. I just played Season 0, it's super fresh in my mind, and while we did have a couple of these frustrating moments with our restriction cards and with some of our missions, overall, I thought there were some clever innovations with the multiple aliases for every player to have a variety of abilities and skills and different things they can modify their character with. I also liked the theme. I think that sometimes there were some goals where you might have like random things happen and you don't understand why you're doing these psych evals and what the real take is on your eval and how that affects your game. But overall, I would say I had a really good time with it. I thought it was a smart revisioning of the Pandemic series, like I mentioned earlier, with the figures fighting in the Cold War against the Russians, compared to a disease or the things that happen in Season 1 and Season 2. Which leaves me for my favorite Pandemic Legacy being Season 1. And it just has to come down to, this was the first legacy I ever played, it was the first legacy that ever came out, and it did something I didn't know games could do. And it was a thoroughly engaging and fun experience. While it is the most basic and the most simple, it's simpler the best. It's really good. And again, we got to do things like stickers on stickers and write on things and scratch. We were scratching stuff. We had like quarters and nickels everywhere and we were scratching things off. Just neat. It's the best. So that's my ranking of Pandemic Legacy. How would you rank your experience playing Pandemic Legacy? Tell me in the comments below. Thanks for watching and liking this video, and I'll see you next time.
Alright, I'm out of here. Stay safe. Hey, wish me luck. Stay cool.